We'll make a start. Good morning, everyone. My name's Jonathan Males, and I'm joined today by William Winstone for this webinar. I'm very pleased to welcome you today. The focus is on finding confidence in challenging times. For those of you who haven't met us before, Metsana Partners is a team of performance psychologists and coaches, and we bring our experience of supporting elite sports performers, as well as working with companies around the world over the last 25 years. And we help leaders and their teams to create thriving organisations. And just in terms of setting the scene for today, the challenges we face today are particular to our time. None of us have ever been in a pandemic before, but leaders have always been needed to take the helm when seas get rough. This quote from more than 2,000 years ago, I think, makes that point. And humans have always faced many rough seas. And I've no doubt, though, that we can steer through the current challenges, but it's not easy. So today we're going to focus on two areas. First of all, William is going to talk about finding your individual sources of confidence as a leader. Then I will pick up on how you can instill confidence in your team, how you can take that message out to your people. We'll have time for some questions at the end. We'll be wrapping up by pretty close to 8:30. But we're going to be available to talk later than that if any of you have more questions. And we're also recording the webinar. So look forward to getting this message across to you today. And over to you, William.
Thanks, Jonathan. And good morning to you all. In terms of your individual sources of confidence, there's going to be three areas that I talk about. I'm going to talk about why it's so important. I'll then talk about your traits or your more historic sources of confidence. And then we'll spend most of the time looking at your current sources of confidence and what you can do about that. And the reason why this matters, your individual confidence matters so much. Really, there are two key things. First of all, how confident you feel has an enormous impact on how you view the world, how you view your key relationships, and how you make many decisions. That then translates into, very powerfully, what you exude to your team. So whatever you're feeling internally will be communicated in some way, shape or form to all of those people around you. We give off our mood. We give off our level of calm and confidence. We can do a pretty good job of masking that when it's a bit conflicted, and that's a skill in its own right. But it's really important to attend to ourselves ahead of thinking about how do we influence other people. So let's just talk a little bit about where your confidence comes from historically. And really, we're going to get a little bit into the nature and nurture debate, but it's not really a debate. Although scientists aren't really clear what the balance of those things are exactly, but we are given aspects of confidence in our personality through our DNA, and then we learn it in a couple of areas, and our personal histories and our attachment styles. So our personal history is very, very important in terms of what events do we have to deal with in our lives. The word trauma is often used, and I think it's a very helpful word when it's used, especially in the sort of non-dramatic way. All of us have to deal with different aspects, different experiences, which sometimes make us stronger, but sometimes can leave us with a little bit of an oversensitivity in aspects of our lives. Attachment relates to, how do I trust? How do I build bonds with people in the world? We all have different styles of trusting, of relating to people, and that then affects one key area of our personality, which is the balance of how much I seek opportunity and how much I avoid threat. Now, these are both hardwired into us as core capabilities. So first of all, avoiding threat, we're actually wired to sense threat more than seek opportunity. And that's a key benefit. It's been an evolutionary benefit. However, as leaders, we need to watch this, because if we're overly soaked up in threat sensing, then that can mean that we're more pessimistic. And I'm going to look at the balance of optimism and pessimism in a little bit. We need to be opportunity seeking. Partly it drives our optimism, but that balance, we need both. In the world of cricket that I do a lot of work in, if I take a couple of examples, one of our best bowlers, Simon Harmer, spin bowler, he just loves every chance. Every ball is a chance to take a wicket. And that makes him incredibly positive. He's also got a pretty good threat monitor, but he's certainly got I'd say a balance towards the opportunity seeking. If I take Alistair Cook, I would suggest he's probably a little bit more threat aware. That's what makes him an amazing opening batsman, amongst other things. Makes him a bit less able to take opportunities in the one-day game and the T20 game. So as leaders, the reason this matters particularly right now is, as Jonathan's going to describe, one of the things you're going to need to do is to really look into the anxious, the sources of anxiety which you're facing. So if you're blind to the threats, it's very hard to do that. And then overall, when we're looking at our historic threats, our historic sources of confidence, the most important thing is your self-awareness. There are aspects of these traits which are pretty much given to you, but with awareness, you can attend to them. With awareness, so as a tennis player, as I get older, I'm less fit than my 25-year-old opponents. My natural state is to be more threat avoiding and not to make mistakes. I've had to learn to be more aggressive, to then shorten the points, and competitively, that gives me a lot of success. Now, there will be parallels about when is there an appropriate risk and where that you need to look into, when is there an opportunity that you need to step towards. So let's move towards actually then your present day sources of confidence. And I'm going to keep using a few examples from sport, and some of the research has come from sport in this area. And purpose is a key driver of individual confidence. And my ability to articulate to myself, first of all, why I exist as a business. So why do we exist as a business, Metzana? We're here to help teams, leaders, and organizations thrive and transform themselves to meet challenges. For me, that's incredibly important, and I know I can contribute to that and lead in that. That gives me confidence. So there's an alignment between my strengths and what I'm here to do. And then that creates a clearer picture of success. I need to be able to communicate that with myself, and then I can communicate it to other people. Secondly, the environment. And in high performance sport, home advantage is an example of a familiar environment. And so clearly we are in an incredibly unfamiliar environment in some ways. Although in the early part of the lockdown, I remember talking with Catherine and Jonathan, and we shared a reflection that there were similarities with some of this with being at an Olympic Games or a Paralympic Games. And so one of the skills here, and we're going to look at skills in a moment, is how can I borrow experiences, relevant experiences, and translate them into insight about the current environment. But the key thing here is really thinking about what else do I need to better understand? And this is where the balance of threat and opportunity is really, really important. Really scanning the environment, really digging deep, and continuing to do that will continue to give me a sense of, I know what this is about. Now, our team is a very broad term. So firstly, if the team that I'm leading is working well together, that gives me confidence. So that's both the quality of relationships, having the right people on the bus or the right enough people on the bus. And a key aspect is how well do I trust my line manager and how well do they trust me? because if that's a tight, highly trusting team, that's an immense source of confidence. And again, if I can use a cricket example, I worked with a guy called Chris Silverwood, who's now the England head coach. He had the amazing ability to bring a combination of humor plus a really high work ethic. And he basically would say to the players, as long as you're working hard, it doesn't matter, really. I won't have a go at you if you don't score runs, if you don't have a good day, because I trust in you, because you've done the work. And he exuded that. And that gave the players an immense freedom to perform. And I think it's a big, big part of his success. So it's a big thing that you can do as line managers yourselves, is exude that and build those relationships. And then support from friends and family. That's all a part of a broader team. We all have needs in that area. And during the current situation with the Paralympic rowing team I'm working with, we're paying enormous attention. On the one hand, we're trying to help people train at a really high level. But on the other hand, sometimes we're saying, right, actually, you can train from home with your family, because on balance, that's going to give you a better quality of training for this month. There are phases when that's not going to be an option. So yeah, that's recognizing that can be a part of really helping people build confidence and then their resilience. So my skills then relates to any aspect of relevant experience from my life. What experiences have I been through that are relevant right now? I'm trying to remember which one of the hostages from, well, I'm not sure if it's late 80s, early 90s, who said, actually, being in solitary confinement wasn't too much of a problem because I went to an English boarding school. Now, you know, that's typical boarding school humor, but there's also a very positive draw on some past experiences. I've been through this. I've been through something similar. I'm going to get through this. So drawing on skills, drawing on your mindset, which I'll come on to in a moment. But a part of skills is actually also how you manage your mindset as well as your technical skills. So let's just talk a bit about mindset, which is obviously at the heart of the sports side of our work. And a key aspect of that is, how do you balance your optimism and pessimism? And I've talked about that opportunity seeking and threat avoiding side. And this is really a development of that. And we must have a balance. And one of the interesting things, there's a recent McKinsey article which looked at, it talked about saying a lot of people in business have an optimism bias, and that served them really well in the last 20 or 30 years. It may not be serving them so well in a pandemic and in these sort of volatile times in which we're living. We need to be able to look more closely at the threats and plan for them, and then come back with resilience. So if we get stuck at either end of this, that's a big risk. So clearly, if I get stuck with pessimism, my team will lose morale. And actually, we lose purpose, we lose direction. It's commercially very, very dangerous. On the other side, if I get stuck in optimism, I'm really unable to see the threats, and I'm unable to plan for them. What's needed is a combination, which we're calling grounded optimism. And some of the leaders I've been working with just in the last few weeks, a couple of people said to me that they were feeling more despondent, actually, and that had really shaken them, because they're just not used to feeling despondent. And my response was, yeah, I understand that. And this may be a very natural resetting. Often the phase of resetting our balance is uncomfortable. But I actually think that if there isn't a little bit of resetting going on in where you're in the range of your grounded optimism, well, that would surprise me. I'd expect that everybody's having phases where they're needing to do a bit of reassessment, but you need to come back with a position of, I'm resourceful and I'm going to find a way forward in the face of difficulty. So what can you do to build your grounded optimism? Well, very simply, one of the main drivers of our balance is how we talk to ourselves. And I was recently writing a very long bit of work for a lot of film scripts I had to write. And at times, I must say, my optimism dipped. But I put a little post-it note on my screen that just said, there'll be a way of doing this. There's a way of doing this. And simple messages to ourselves can be very, very helpful. It's important to know a bit about yourself. And this comes back to to the self-awareness. What's your normal internal voice like? Is it more of a helpful coach? Or is it more of a critic that is sort of nagging away at you in a way that drains you? Or is it a little bit more scaring? And it's good to know what the balance is, because it's really helpful. If my coaching voice is actually pretty challenging, come on, I'm better than this. That's a useful bit of self-talk. But at times, the way I talk to myself could get, and does sometimes get, really unhelpful. I need to intercept that quickly before it drains me. So stand back and reset, and you can use any of these sources to help you tune into, I know why I'm here. I know enough about what this challenge is under environment. This team is really high quality. I was talking to the Essex players last week, and one of them was just saying, we have got out of so many difficult situations. We completely back ourselves to do that the next time it happens. And then if I go straight to mindset, again, just working with a financial services leader last week, on the way she was talking to herself before a big presentation, she came up with the words, I own this, with that tone of voice. And that just made it, that calmed her, it reset her and made a big difference. So the final thing that I want you to contemplate, and we'll be sending the slides to you afterwards, is strengths focus is really important. So after this, here's an invitation to scan this list and think about which of these are a real strength for me in fueling my confidence. And if there's one that I want to build a bit more on, which is it? So whether that's purpose, environment, team, skills, or my mindset, I want to encourage you to prioritize. So one of the things I'm working with confidence is, key principle, focus on your strengths, number one, attend to just one thing at a time. And work on that for a week or two to start with, see what you learn. Okay, so I will now hand over to Jonathan, who will talk more about instilling confidence in your team. You're muted, Jonathan.
I want to start by talking about two of the ways in which I think leaders tend to get this wrong. And this relates to what William was saying in terms of keeping the balance between optimism and pessimism. I've seen sometimes leaders get overly pessimistic. They get so obsessed with the current problems they're faced, and as a result, people around them lose energy, lose spirit. Conversely, people can become too overly optimistic and their heads in the clouds. They're seeing it's all talk and no action. It's just all talk. It's a fantasy, and it becomes unbelievable. But interestingly, these two aspects are really important, because if you're going to inspire people to move, if you're going to inspire your team to change and grow, you actually need to be really clear about two things. The first is where you are right now, we call that your current reality. And secondly, Where do you want to get to? What's your future vision? These are two super clear ingredients. Let me explain a bit about current reality. I hope you've seen the film The Blues Brothers. If you've not seen it, it's a good laugh. One of my favourite scenes, the two key characters, Roy and Elmo, they're sitting in their car and one says to his brother, it's 106 miles to Chicago. We've got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes, it's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. And his brother just says, hit it, and off they go. Now, it's to me, that's a beautiful description of the power of current reality, because it is a clear and honest description of where we are right now. Tank full of gas, half a pack of cigarettes, we're wearing sunglasses. There's something very powerful about just naming where we are without watering it down, without soft soaping, or without making it worse than what it is, but just describing this is where we are. Because people need to hear that. When people hear that as a leader, you are grounded in the truth of the situation that they recognize around them, it's actually very reassuring. And it's the starting point for action. If you're going on a journey, if you need to get to Chicago, you need to know where you are right now. And as a leader, you've got to be able to articulate that very, very clearly and very, very honestly. But that's not enough. You also need a destination. And I love this quote I found from Helen Keller. Optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Nothing can be done without hope and confidence. So this is bringing in that degree of optimism and confidence again that William talked about, and using that to describe your future aspirations. Where do you want to get to? What do you want to happen? And as a leader, it's very important that you own this, that you can describe what it is you want to create. Where are we going with this business? What do we want the future to look like? And the important word there is want. There's something about the desire to create, the desire to bring this about that is really, really important. Because when you look ahead, you need to look ahead, but not too far. People need to feel that it's within reach. It's optimistic, but it's grounded again. It's not a fantasy. It's something that people can look at. And when you describe it, you need to describe it so that people can picture and feel themselves being part of it. It's no good, if the vision is a desert island with no one on it, that's not going to be very attractive. But if it's something where they can see themselves, oh yeah, that's exciting, I'd like to be part of that. You're starting to do something very, very powerful. And the process here, this idea of creative power, I first learned about this about 30 years ago from reading the work of Robert Fritz. If you imagine this as a rubber band. Now, a rubber band that's not stretched at all contains no potential energy. But if you can imagine, as we stretch a rubber band, we put energy into the rubber band. Yeah. The further you stretch it, the more tension, the more potential energy that rubber band holds. Now, what does rubber band do when it's stretched? What's the natural thing that it wants to do? It wants to resolve it. It wants to come back. It wants to lose that energy. That's a function of the system. If you imagine that the reality is one end and your vision is the other, and you're stretching that rubber band, you're creating energy. And if you hold on to the vision, what shifts? Well, the rubber band is going to help you shift your reality and move towards that rubber band, move towards the vision. So this is a really clear principle here. And it's the capacity as a leader to be able to craft a narrative, to tell a story that combines where we are right now with where we want to get to. Human beings respond to stories. You need to be able to tell a story that starts with where we are and includes this is where we want to get to. And two really important things happen when you do this. First of all, if you're being truthful about reality, people will recognize that. They'll say, yeah, that's where we are right now. There's no BS here. This is where we are. I get that. That's consistent with my experience of the truth. I'm not being flossed off about where we are right now. But they will also respond emotionally to your vision. And it's that response is so important. It's not just head, it's heart. I can see that vision. I want to be part of that. That would be really cool to get there. Wow, yeah, that's exciting. That's challenging. And again, it's the capacity when you tell a story that holds both of those together, that creates an energy for movement and action and creativity towards the vision. Super, super powerful. And then you're in the position to invite people to contribute to how we get there. Because this isn't a solo activity. You're inviting people to be part of your story, part of your journey. And then you encourage people to take the first step. You don't expect to have every stage mapped out in advance. In a complex world, we cannot see the future. We cannot know what each step of that journey is going to be. And we can't guarantee to people that you can tell them what each step of that journey is, because that's going to emerge. What is clear is the destination that you want to get to. And what you need to do is take the first step, because when you take the first step, your current reality will change. This is really important. Taking the first step, the first movement of action towards your vision, means that your reality is now different from what it was before you took that step, which allows you, as long as you keep the vision the same, to keep repeating this process. This is where we are now, and this is where we want to get to. If you imagine you're sailing in a little boat across the Atlantic Ocean, you couldn't predict where your boat was going to be at every moment of that journey. It's impossible. The current, the wind, the waves, all that you cannot tell someone in advance when you set out from the harbour where your boat is going to be on every point of that journey. But you can tell them with great certainty, our destination is here. And if you've got good navigation skills, you can say, and at this moment, this is where we are. And as a result of that, this is where we go. And then an hour later, or a day later, or a week later, you can plot your point against, this is where we are now. It's changed. Where's their destination? It's there. Right, what does that mean we need to do? So it's this constant process of reevaluating where we are now, describing that with great clarity and reaffirming the vision, constantly creates and recreates that sense of energy and creativity and drive to take people in the direction that you want to go. And you keep repeating that until you reach your destination. And then when you're there, you can plot a new destination, because in the world we're in, there's no stable utopia that we're going to reach. Wherever you get to is your vision. By the time you get there, you'll be ready to cast a new one. It's a constant process, but this is the way of generating energy to get people moving along the way. So in terms of taking some action from this morning, to build on what William talked about, we'd love you to reflect and review on your personal sources of confidence and just focus on one aspect. Don't take on everything, choose one thing to make a difference on that's going to help you feel a little bit more confident, more grounded, because as William said, you cast a long shadow over your organization. Your level of energy, mood, and optimism will ripple out and people will respond to that. Check on how well you're describing your current reality. Are you doing honestly to yourself and to others? And ask yourself, how clear and compelling is your vision for the future? And check, can you tell a story to your team, to your people, that combines that, where you are and where you want to go? And then, super importantly, take a step. Take the first step. Do something in response to that story, in response to mapping out where you are and where you want to go. And it's that step that makes the difference. So let me just close with a couple of quotes. The first is from John Kenneth Galbraith, who's one of the great economists of the 20th century. He worked with Eisenhower and Kennedy. He was the architect of the Marshall Plan after the Second World War that rebuilt Europe. And he said, all of the great leaders, and this is a man who worked with many, all of the great leaders have had one characteristic in common. It was the willingness to confront unequivocally the major anxiety of their people in their time. This, and not much else, is the essence of leadership. And if that's not a more elegant way of talking about current reality, I don't know what is. But as we said, it's not enough. And as Bonaparte said, a leader is a dealer in hope. You've got to balance out the hope for the future, the forward moving direction of where we want to get to. So we've got time. If there's any questions, please take yourself off mute. We've got a couple of minutes and we'd love to hear any response or questions that this may have raised for you. And if not, that's fine as well. But I wanted to
Hi,
give
Jonathan.
a moment. Yeah.
It's Gary here.
Hi, Gary.
William referred previously to the skill of false confidence, and I wondered whether he could just comment on that a little bit more. And where there is false confidence, how do you transition that into true confidence?
Jonathan, do you want to just unshare the screen just so we can see people's faces as well as we? Great. And when you say, are you talking, Gary, about situations where you're almost having to fake it because actually inside you're not feeling great, or is that what you're alluding to?
Yeah, with the fear of Edward being on this call as well, and opening up considerably here. I would say for myself, in growing up, I wouldn't have said boo to a goose, but then 20 years in hospitality and then a further 20 years in training, I have adopted a persona where I have known that I've got to put the face on. And I've majority of the time I get away with it and people don't know what's going on behind, and I don't let them know what's going on behind. So how do you transition from that always putting the game face on and being very good at putting the game face on, and actually then going, no, I need to unwind this and really feel confident in what I'm doing?
I'm not sure there's a need. Let me explain. I sort of think in every walk of life, whether you're Johnny Wilkinson, who said he'd throw up every time before, if there was a taxi, he would have got in it to get away from the ground. Or whether it's Jonathan and myself going into this webinar, I needed to manage myself to communicate in a particular sort of way, and it's a less, I'm channeling. So in many ways, I think it's entirely appropriate and sustainable and healthy to tune ourselves into what's the task at hand right now and what's going to be helpful right now. There's no need to transition from that, in my view. Now, obviously, if that's a big leap every day, that might be something that actually is quite draining. And so there's a longer term picture, I'd say. So as another example, when I was a tennis coach, I had to get more extroverted of running big groups. But actually, that was really quite easy for me to do. And actually, I quite enjoyed it. So I think it's more about, well, how demanding is that? And what's your route into it? And that could be worth looking at. If your route into it is incredibly demanding and back out of it, it's like, whew, then that's the bit that I would be intrigued about. But the idea of tuning in to show our more confident self, I think that's part of healthy living.
And remember, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the capacity to perform regardless of how you feel in the face of fear. As a sports psychologist, I spent many years trying to find the relationship between how people feel and how they perform, because I thought there was a magic relationship. And if people could feel a particular way, they perform a particular way. Eventually, I realized that was a false pursuit. People, it's the capacity to perform no matter how you feel is important, not trying to get yourself into a particular state to perform. And again, I've seen that to back up what William said. People can perform in all sorts of ways, feeling all sorts of different things. And it goes back to, for me, my current reality is I feel anxious right now. What's my vision? My vision is I need to walk out onto that stage and perform. Okay, that's what I'm doing. I happen to feel anxious right now. Yes, that's current reality. But what is it I want to be doing? So getting into that process individually, I think, is super important as well. And this isn't to disregard emotions at all, but it is, I think, to sever the link between I have to feel a particular way to do a particular thing. No. I need to manage how I feel. I need to accept how I feel, but I don't need to make myself feel a particular way in order to be effective in my job.
Thank you. Very useful. Thank you.
I think, Gary, Jonathan and I could talk with you all morning on this. Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions? Anyone else have a response or something you'd like to ask about?
It's not really. I don't think you can hear me. Okay. Not not a question as such, but more around the area you were talking about, Jonathan, in terms of sort of expressing a vision to a group. I think, certainly from my experience, there can be the tendency for people that the more senior they get in an organisation, they can be more and more detached from the reality of what's happening on the ground, if you like, on the front line. And I think we've got to be very conscious about, as you sort of expressed, sort of setting a vision which appears quite fantasist. It's sort of so devoid of the reality of what's actually happening. A lot of people that they don't buy into it, and it's finding that balance, isn't it? Really, I don't know if there's anything that you can do further around that. Really, how we achieve that.
Well, look, it is absolutely key. As I've said, I think I'd always be very cautious about talking about the vision without also weaving in where we are now.
Yeah.
So don't come in with any kind of talk that's purely talking about 2025 without also acknowledging 2020, because it's the link between the two. People need to hear and see. Okay, I'm recognizing my current world in what this guy's saying. He's alluding to it. He's recognizing it. He's pointing to it in such a way that I get it, that he gets it. He's in the same world as me. Great. Okay. Now, tell me a bit about what's coming up next. So I think for me, I can't sort of put it more clearly than that in telling the story, it's got to include both aspects of where we are now and that future. One without the other, it doesn't work, because you either get lost in the, oh God, 2020, or head in the clouds.
I think it can also be really helpful to have pictures of success which are very tangible in 6 months' time and in a year's time. So there's something here about actually more immediate pictures of success, which are along the way to the vision.
Can I just ask again about the grounded optimism? In my own head here, I'm just really for clarity, rather than finding a place of permanent balance, in my head, I'm thinking I probably go up and down that scale on a regular basis. So where my actual grounded optimism might end up, I think is quite fluid, because I think my natural tendency is to deal with all the problems, and then we can attack the opportunities with confidence rather than looking over our shoulders. So I sort of would think I would go up and down there quite frequently. Is that a natural thing to be doing?
Completely. And I'd say grounded optimism is usefully thought about as a range. What's my normal range? And if I'm well outside that, that can be an example of when my well-being is a little bit under stress. And just to be a bit curious about what's going on at the moment, because I'm out of my range. And our ranges may be stretched at the moment, especially perhaps downward.
And if you think about the complexity of what's going on, for anyone to be completely, to respond exactly the same all the way through what's going on, that wouldn't be healthy. There are going to be times when we're all going to take a bit of a hit. There are going to be times when we all feel a bit more optimistic about what's going on. So it's a bit like, responding to what's going on within, as William said, within a range. So yes, of course, there are going to be times when I feel better or worse at what's going on. But if you can narrow the range, but don't expect it to be sort of locked in like a thermostat.
Well, thank you.
I'll say, Mark, thank you. You made an interesting comment on the chat there about the vision is sometimes easier than connecting to the reality without judgment. And I think that goes into the Galbraith quote about being willing to face into the present anxiety is a tough one to do, to name how difficult things can be right now. Any more?
Will this recording be available to sort of download effectively? Do you know?
Yeah, we can share that with you. Yep, absolutely. So we'll do that. So look, just to finish, thank you very much for joining us this morning. A quick promotional piece at the end. In January, we're going to launch a new cohort of our Leading in New Worlds program, which has proved very successful so far. This is a 3-month, 4-module program that is really designed to help people equip themselves for the current challenges of remote working, working with COVID, working with uncertainty. We've got one cohort well under the way at the moment, and it's proving a really great program. So we're going to launch another open program in January. So look out for details about that. Otherwise, on behalf of Metsana Partners, thank you so much for joining us. William, final word from you?
No, it's been a great conversation afterwards. And so thank you to all of you, and look forward to our paths crossing again at some point in the future.
Terrific. Okay, have a great day, everyone.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.